men with big in the women's locker room.
So, but about the bathroom, am I entitled to it? I know that I'm a woman. Not everyone possesses this much self-feminine power.
Another trans rights horror story is going viral and reminding us just how crazy everything has become. We're going to break this down, plus so much more, on today's episode of the Barad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we cover the craziest things from across the internet and social media, all from an independent perspective. Up first, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about a crazy story that's gone viral on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, and more, about a singer, a black woman in Los Angeles who had a very bad encounter with a biological male, a person who claims to be a trans woman, at a Gold's Gym in LA, and then had her membership canceled. So the New York Post here reports LA singer says her Gold's Gym membership was revoked after heated confrontation with, quote, man using women's locker room. Now, we actually have some footage of their original confrontation, although they've apparently had multiple confrontations or conflicts over a series of weeks. And this was just kind of the final iteration of it. But first, let's look at that first video.
How are you? Did you tell me or not that women like to see?
I'm asking you a question.
Exactly. Get out of the way now. No. Now he knows how to be a man, right? Now he knows how to be a man. Stay out of the women's locker room. We don't want it. He needs to have his gym membership revoked for that shit. And the woman told you. He assaulted me. The girl told already. We already filed reports. No.
That's fine. I want the video.
You can't get rid of me for this. I'm a woman and I have every right to not want a man in the restroom when I'm naked. There are girls naked in there. Look at them walking in there like it's okay. It's not okay. Gold's Gym. Men. Grown men with big in the women's locker room. And that's why I'm getting kicked out. And I want to make sure the girls know.
So, wow, this was quite the scene, quite chaotic, but I do feel bad for this woman. I mean, obviously, we have her side of the story so far. I did do a deep dive into this, and we will hear from the alleged trans woman as well later in this episode. But yeah, I mean, look, anybody who is in a vulnerable state, any woman, and then has somebody who is obviously male, isn't very far along in the transition, if one is even happening, observing them and then making any kind of inappropriate comments to them, that's a horrific experience and not something any woman should be subjected to. It's certainly not progressive or woke or feminist. And I can see why she got so upset. Now, in fairness to Gold's Gym, they're actually bound by California laws, which we'll discuss in more detail later, to let that person use the women's restroom. They really don't, legally speaking, have the ability to deny them the access to the women's locker room. So to get too frustrated with Gold's Gym, I think was perhaps understandable on her part, but not actually fair. The real frustration should lie with, I mean, maybe Gold's Gym would have these crazy policies anyway, but they're legally obligated to under California law. And I feel like that should be accounted for before taking it all out on this business, as if they just chose to open up the doors to this trans identified person to the women's room. That's not necessarily the case, although they did cancel this woman's membership. That may be because it turned into such a scene and she did scream and use profanity at their staff. And while I can understand the emotion on her part, I can also understand them not wanting their employees to be subjected to that. So let's take a look at a second clip from this woman where she, I think the sequence here is a little confusing because this happened multiple times, an altercation with this same person at multiple different locations of Gold's Gym in the LA area, where this woman explains her concerns and why she's so bothered by this. Take a listen.
I just had the worst experience ever at the gym, at Gold's Gym, and I think this is probably happening at gyms across America, where like trans women are going into the women's locker room and not really caring about how women feel about it. And it's really hurtful, yo. Like, how you gonna say you want to be a woman or that you are a woman, but you don't give a how women feel? Today I was naked in the locker room. I turned around and there's a man there. in boy clothes, lip gloss, standing there looking at me. I'm butt naked. So the first thing I think is maybe there's a worker in here. Maybe I missed a sign. I say the word sir to say, sir, what are you doing in here? He goes, don't talk to me. I'm a woman. I have a right to be in here. Immediately, I'm pissed because I'm butt naked. I feel violated. I feel like weird. Like I don't want to deal with this, right? So the girls are walking in and they're seeing the commotion and they actually chime in and say, yo, I don't know why he's in here. He's not supposed to be in here. And then I talk to the people that work at Gold's Gym and they don't really have anything to do. They just like, oh, we can file a report about it, incident report. What the is going on? Like, I don't want to say that I know everything about gay rights or trans rights. I'm a lesbian. I've been a lesbian my whole life. I treat people how I want to be treated regardless of whatever their sexual orientation is or whatever they decide. So I'm not transphobic and I'm not homophobic. I'm not straightphobic. I'm not racist. None of these things. I just believe in treating people how I want to be treated. And don't come into my comments about he gay, he ain't looking at you. I don't give a bro. It's about a feeling, yo. Like, if you've never been a little girl who been touched or been through some shit, you won't understand that feeling. And you've never been a little girl.
Yeah, so especially because of the part she mentioned at the end, my heart does go out to this woman. I can totally understand why it would be so upsetting and so discomforting for her to have this experience. And then it sounds like this person, who I believe is that she's referring to the same person in the first conflict video that we watched, just had no decency, didn't want to just blend in, because I think that actual transsexual, like trans people who I want to pass and live in the world as if they're a woman, go out of their way actually to make women comfortable and to avoid making women uncomfortable. But it sounds like this person, this male, did the opposite of that and is entitled and thinks I get to go wherever I want, get over it. And that is just horrible and terrible and obviously antisocial and destructive behavior. So I do feel bad for this woman and the experience that she had. And I think she raises some fair points. She's clearly not some evil, bigot, far-right extremist, right? She's a black lesbian woman. I don't think she's political in one way or the other, really, or at least certainly wasn't going into it. But an experience like this might change that, might push her to one side of the extreme. And I have heard of a lot of people who had that experience. So, oh yeah, there's so much more here. We're actually going to hear from an interview that the person in question did on TMZ, the trans person in question, and I found it to be rather revealing. So we will take a look at that as well. But do make sure you're subscribed. Do hit the like button. Do comment with your thoughts. Remember to send in your voicemails for our Voicemail Friday episodes, where I react to your woke horror stories, answer your questions, and give you advice on your personal lives. The link to send in one of those is in the description. Now I want to look at a couple clips from the TMZ segment where they actually spoke to both sides of this conflict, and I thought the resulting interviews and responses were interesting, to say the least. Let's look at this.
Well, joining us now is one of the people that that Tish says she confronted in the locker room. Her name is Alexis Black, and she's joining us now. Alexis, welcome to TMZ Live.
Hi.
Sorry, I just stop here, but everything about this. Hi. It's like, it's not giving trans woman to me. It's giving low effort male with lipstick who likes to make women uncomfortable. I could be wrong, but that was my initial perception of this person. Just my original perception. And frankly, the rest of the interview only furthered and further cemented that impression that I had.
Hey, Alexis. So we spoke with Tish, and she said when she came face to face with you, it was obvious to her you were a man. So, you know, I don't want to get terribly graphic here, but can you kind of explain, you know, how you appeared? You know, do you believe that she was reading something in that you didn't appear to be male? She perceived you to be such.
Well, first, I told the people that raised me that this is the way that I was when I was 8 years old, and really I stuffed it down pretty deep, and I began using hormones this year in February, and I actually relinquished that information to her about, you know, name change, and it says female on my ID and hormones, and I mean, I'm registered as a female with the gym.
So you can be registered with the United Nations as a female and you're still not. You're still male, right? That refers to sex, and your sex is male. You are not a female. So, I mean, you could register with the state government as being African American, and they could approve that and list your race as African American on official documents. You still would not, in fact, be African American. Like, I don't know what to tell this person because they sound kind of delusional, as if they actually believe they are female. And you have been taking hormones for less than a year and are not very far along in any kind of transition, and yet you're going and flaunting around in women's locker rooms. I don't know. It just seems like somebody who is not trying to blend in and does want to antagonize women and is walking around in a towel with a bulge, presumably. And yeah, that's not what some of the actual transsexual women that I know ever would do. They would never go into women's spaces until they are very far along to the point of passability in their transition. And regardless, like, this whole situation could have been avoided by this person. You presumably you don't have to go into a locker room where people are changing at the gym. I go to the gym. I've been to a gym many times, and I don't really change there. That is an avoidable thing. And it's like, I'm sure there's some single stall bathrooms or some other locations you could use. It's just, it seems to me that this person is entitled and delusional and doesn't care if they make women uncomfortable, because I'm a woman. I feel so inside, and therefore I'm literally female in every way. And anybody who doesn't affirm that truth is a bigot. I mean, I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but the interview with this person only got more deranged. Let's keep it moving.
I'm just wondering if you see her perspective. She's saying that she's looking at you, say, in a towel, and you still have male genitalia, and, you know, you may be transitioning, but could you understand her being uncomfortable?
Well, I certainly do not understand it, but I do get the notion of the fear-mongering that she's perpetuating.
Sorry, it's not fear-mongering for a woman in a vulnerable state of undress not want to be observed without her consent by a male. It's not fear-mongering. It's reality, and it's perfectly understandable. And to dismiss women's concerns as fear-mongering is, again, I think, very disrespectful and antagonistic, which sadly kind of par for the course for this individual, who I think is not just harming the women around them, but also giving the trans community a very bad look and a very bad name.
So she was saying, why don't they have a third bathroom? Especially the gym you're talking about at the Beverly Center. That's been recently built. They had a layout that they could have adjusted, and they could have put a third locker room in. Do you think that would have been appropriate, or do you feel like you are as entitled to use the women's locker room just as Tish is?
You know, that's a great question. I'm glad that she said it, that she have put it on the air. And the answer is that would necessitate two different ones, because some people trans MTF, some people go FTM. And so that's two rooms right there. You're not going to put a trans woman with a trans man just because we're trans. That seems like a new envelope of discrimination. But
how is that discrimination? Male locker room, female locker room, gender neutral space. There you go. Problem solved. Now, of course, what they're leaving out of this is that it would be illegal to, in California, under their laws, which we're going to go over, to require trans women or trans men to use this gender neutral space. That would be illegal under California law. They are entitled to, at any time, use whatever facility they want in the name of human rights under California law. So they're just discussing nonsensical, non-existent scenarios, unfortunately.
But yeah, it's just like, I feel like this had to happen in order for people to learn about trans. It's like it's a thing. We're here. We're going anywhere. We've been here for thousands of years. There's like 10 species of animals on Earth that do this too. Just by the way, everybody. And but about the bathroom, am I entitled to it? I know that I'm a woman. Should they have built another one to necessitate building this room? People would have to have the level of comfortability within themselves that I do. Not everyone possesses this much self-feminine power. It doesn't happen. Not in this patriarchal system of which we've been living for so long.
Is the feminine power in the room with us, sir? I'm sorry, but this person just rubs me the wrong way, and I can totally understand why women would not be comfortable with her, this lovely ladylike individual, in the locker room. This person seems totally unconcerned and unbothered about women's discomfort, very entitled, seems to have totally delusional ideas about biology and sex and gender. And yeah, I think like you are the problem. You are the people like this who just put on lipstick, take hormones for a couple months and then think they're the same thing as a woman and just start walking into women's spaces and acting like they own the place and don't care if they make other people uncomfortable. That is why there is backlash to the trans community. 10, 15, 20 years ago, there were a tiny number of transsexual people fully blending in, using the spaces that correspond to the sex they want to walk the world as, and no one cared because problems almost never happen. People like this came around, adopted the trans mantra of self-ID, whatever you feel like inside is your truth, and everyone must bow down to it, and that's when the problems and backlash started happening. So I think this person is the problem. I feel bad for the singer who got her membership revoked, and I think people don't realize just how insane and unhinged some of these blue state gender identity laws are. I was curious about this. Like, what exactly is the law in California that governs in these situations? And so I looked it up and I found the ACLU of Southern California has a helpful explainer. Can a gym or spa deny me service or exclude me from gender segregated spaces because I'm transgender or non-binary? No. Under the UNRRA Civil Rights Act, business establishments in California may not deny anyone full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, privileges, or services because of their sex, gender, gender identity, or gender expression. This means people who are transgender or non-binary have the right to full and equal participation in a gym or spa experience, including access to locker rooms and other spaces based on their gender identity. Do I have the right to use the restroom and locker room that match my gender identity? Yes, you have the right to use the gender segregated facility, including restroom, locker room, etc., that correspond to your gender identity, regardless of your assigned sex at birth. A gym or spa cannot force you to use facilities that do not correspond with your gender identity or deny you access to facilities that do correspond with your gender identity. Can a gym or spa require documentation or proof of my gender? No. Businesses cannot require a driver's license, birth certificate, court order, medical record, or other identification to access gender-segregated facilities or amenities. So, this is insane. Just to be clear, this is like psychotic. What they are saying is they can't ask for any proof. You don't have to have a diagnosis. You don't have to have transitioned. Basically, it is just open season. You may go into whatever bathroom you feel like at that given moment, and it just has to be open to you, and that's human rights law. That's insane. That is not something normal, rational people will ever find to be anything other than insane. No matter what language of discrimination and human rights you wrap it in, nobody's ever going to be okay with that. And it just has a total denial of like the basic biological reality and the reason that any of these spaces are segregated in the first place. And it opens the door to creeps like this person in the controversy that we covered earlier, who are going to make women uncomfortable. The laws in California are so extreme that you can even just say, I feel non-binary at this moment and walk into any women's space. So they conclude, I am non-binary and go to a gym or spa that segregates facilities by gender. Can the business choose which facilities I use? A gym or spa or other similar business can legally divide its locker rooms or other facilities into men's and women's. However, if your gender identity is non-binary, you can use the facility in which you feel most comfortable. The business doesn't get to choose. So essentially, women's spaces don't exist in the state of California. Any male can just say, I feel non-binary and walk in, and they have a legal right to access any changing room, locker room, nude spa, what have you, that is full of women. And legally speaking, the business cannot deny them that, or they are violating California anti-discrimination human rights law. This is insane. This is why this story is not just an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern showing just how off a cliff and insane the gender debate and policies have become. And to the point where even black lesbian women who are not political are like, what the heck is going on here? This is insane. That's my take on it all. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Do make sure you like, subscribe, and all that.